Good afternoon, everyone. A quick sound check first. If you're able to hear me, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. Thank you. I see floating hands. Very nice to see those floating hands. Thanks so much. I'm Helene Bleiberg, Assistant Commissioner in the Programs Unit at the Department of Cultural Affairs. And to start our first FY23 CDF Application webinar, I am very pleased to introduce our new Commissioner in the Department of Cultural Affairs, Lori Cumbo.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Lori Cumbo. I'm the new Commissioner for the Department of Cultural Affairs. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm also wearing a green turtleneck, big poofy hair today, black glasses, and a red MAC lipstick. So those are my visuals for today. I want to thank everyone who did so much work to put this presentation together. This is the result of your feedback and what you wanted to see in the CDF process and to make the grant application process that much more streamlined and that much smoother. So I thank everyone who did all of this incredible work to get us to this point. But at the same time, it wouldn't be me if I just didn't welcome everybody, but also I know that we are dealing with a lot in the city right now. Many of you have heard about the very tragic shooting that happened this morning. And while we are all anxious to get started with the presentation, I know that there's a lot that we are all dealing with in terms of managing and pushing forward through a pandemic. And I just want to remind each and every one of you that the work that you are doing is so critical in terms of healing our city, bringing our city forward. And our culture is the soul of who we are. And so the art, the music, the dance, the presentations that you just saw, those are the things that heal the city and make New York City what it is. And so I want you to continue to have hope, continue to have faith that as we move forward as a city, as a nation, that the work that you do is so much a part of the solution. And I believe that internally, that the cultural world is what is going to breathe life back into New York City. So I would strongly encourage everyone not to lose hope. I know that the events of today and others have unsettled all of us. So before we begin the presentation, I just want us to just take a moment, just of quiet, just of silence, just to recenter ourselves, to understand the importance of the work that we are doing, to understand how we have the ability and the power and the creativity to move New York City forward and to be the solution and the answer that particularly so many of our young people need right now. So I just want to take a moment and then we're going to go right into the presentation. So we'll begin the moment now. Okay. So thank you all again so much. I am 4 weeks into the job and it's so wonderful to be with you at the launch of this exciting and dynamic CDF process. In a few minutes, you'll see the materials prepared by DCLA's Programs Unit. They are awesome. They have done this and created this to assist you in applying for funding from the city. Kudos to the entire team for their hard work and high level of service. And they did this during the pandemic. So, you know, really hats off to all of you because I know this is very critical work. It's very detail oriented, but you all really pulled it through. I'm starting my 4th week as commissioner and I'm grateful for your work supporting arts and culture throughout our city. I'm looking forward to connecting and reconnecting with all of you in the months ahead. This is such an exciting time for our field. We're coming back to the city, and it's clear that the city cannot come back without us. We are the foundation and the heart and soul of this city. We are here to help in multiple ways, and what you're about to hear from CDF is an important step to completing the application. We're thrilled to be able to deepen and expand our support to organizations of all sizes throughout the CDF, increased minimum awards, multi-year funding for all, topical evaluative criteria, and a comprehensive review by peer panels for starters. Thanks for your input and your feedback, past and future. It all goes into our evaluation of our work, including this reformed process. I look forward to hearing about your amazing projects and sending awards out as soon as we can. We definitely want to streamline the process to make sure that you get your funding as quickly as possible. So thank you all so very much for holding it together, for getting through the pandemic, and bringing back New York City better, more fairer, and more equitable than ever before. Thank you so much, and it's an honor to serve you as your commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. It is wonderful to have you with us, and we are all looking forward to working with you. I'm going to keep my camera on just for a second to do my own accessibility check with everyone. I am a white woman with short dark hair, wearing a red and black vest to match the palette of our slides in our presentation today. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to the New York Chinese Cultural Center providing our opening video. And I'm going to turn my camera off now so we can continue with the presentation. So welcome again to the Fiscal FY23 Cultural Development Fund Application Seminar. As I mentioned, I'm Helene Bleiberg. My pronouns are she, her, and I am Assistant Commissioner in the Programs Unit at the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, located in unceded homeland of the Lenape people, Lenape-Hoking. My fellow presenters and DCLA program staff behind the scenes will be working together to present this webinar and answer your questions. There are more than 400 people registered for today's session. We will answer as many questions as we can, and please be patient and avail yourselves of all of the resources that we're providing for technical support, technical assistance during this open application period. This seminar will provide an overview to guide you on submitting an eligible application to the Department of Cultural Affairs for fiscal year 2023. If you have not done so already, we suggest you download both the application instructions and the CDF guidelines documents. We've included those links in the chat box for this webinar. These documents will be referenced throughout the presentation and go into even more depth. Next slide, please. First, a note on accessibility. We've created this presentation with accessibility in mind. For a live transcript of this webinar, please click on the closed caption icon at the bottom of your window. A copy of this presentation may be requested via email to cdfhelpdesk@culture.nyc.gov that is accessible by screen readers. A blank copy of the application form can also be downloaded from our website to assist you as you complete the online submission. We'd like to let all attendees know that this event will be recorded. A version of this webinar with closed captioning will be posted on DCLA's YouTube channel in the coming days. DCLA will link to this video from our website and may use all or part of the recording in the future, or authorize others to use it for non-commercial purposes consistent with our mission. If you don't wish your name to be included in this recording, please direct all communication to cdfhelpdesk@culture.nyc.gov rather than using the Q&A feature of this presentation. If you don't wish to have your name visible to other participants or potential future viewers, we recommend that you exit this virtual event and attend a webinar on a different date or watch the recording on our website when it's posted. For questions at any time during the webinar, please use the Q&A function found at the bottom of your screen. Behind the scenes, we will be monitoring your questions throughout the webinar and reserving time to answer them in batches. To streamline our time together, please do not use the chat function. Next slide, please.
¿Tiene alguna pregunta en español? Puede pedir asistencia en español enviando un email al helpdesk al cdfhelpdesk@culture.nyc.gov. Mi colega o yo le contestaremos su pregunta lo más rápido posible. Next slide, please.
So we have divided this presentation into several sections. I'll be giving you an overview of CDF and the FY23 CDF reforms. My colleague, Stacey McMath, will then discuss the guidelines and eligibility, as well as part 1 of the application. And my colleague, Ladan Hamidi Tusi, will cover part 2 of the application and the final Q&A segment. We will also pause for questions after each section and will end with dedicated time to answer any outstanding questions. Please remember to submit your questions using the Q&A function throughout the webinar. If you have a question that is specific to your organization, our behind-the-scenes programs team will answer you directly. If your question is more broadly applicable, we will respond to it live during the webinar so all can benefit from your question. Don't be shy in asking questions, as I know you will not be. We strongly suggest that you stay for the full presentation. Next slide, please. Let's start with the Cultural Development Fund. DCLA will accept proposals in every cultural discipline and from all areas within New York City for services that take place within the 5 boroughs and within the city's FY23, which is July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. The fundamental requirement for all proposals is that they represent a cultural activity of recognized quality that is accessible to the New York City public during the grant period. Funded services can be as different as the organizations providing them, but they will all have a common commitment to public service and public participation. Next slide, please. Here is the FY23 CDF Grant Cycle. The application became available on Monday, April 4th, and the deadline to submit is Monday, May 16th at 5 p.m. I'm happy to announce that we already received our first completed application. This deadline is hard and fast for both parts 1 and 2 of the application. There are no exceptions to this deadline. Please ensure that you do not miss it. Now, what happens once the CDF applications are submitted? DCLA program staff review the applications and confirm that each applicant's borough, discipline, and FY20 income are correctly indicated. We also check that all applicants are eligible and make sure that all the required supplemental materials have been submitted. After the applications are confirmed as complete and apportioned to a panel, they are submitted to panelists for review. We are now accepting nominations to serve on a panel through our website, so please consider participating as a panelist. DCLA's budget will be confirmed around July 1st, and panels will convene throughout the summer. Once they conclude in late August, funding recommendations will be made according to the applicant's budget category and score within the panel ranking. Commissioner Cumbo then approves funding allocations, and notifications will be sent via email in the late fall. Further paperwork is required of grantees, and we ask for that when award notifications are sent. Typically, 80% of an award is paid as an initial payment and 20% upon completion of services once you submit your final report, though payment schedules may vary in some instances. Reporting on annual activities is a requirement for all funded organizations every year. Online reporting forms become available once the fiscal year concludes and are generally due in August. Before we move on to the guidelines, does anyone have questions about CDF and the CDF Lifecycle? Okay, then we will continue with the presentation. Moving on to City Council funding. We're now going to give a bit of an overview of how City Council funds are allocated through our agency. The Department of Cultural Affairs is overseen by the mayor and works closely with our partners in the City Council to ensure compliance, inform policy, and administer funds, among other work. The New York City Council consists of an elected representative from each of the 51 council districts comprising the 5 boroughs. You can visit the City Council website to identify the council members for the districts where you provide services and may be in touch with their offices to learn more about any unique requirements they may have. The support and participation of the City Council, its speaker, and its Cultural Affairs Committee is critical to our funding process. They devote considerable funding to culture throughout the 5 boroughs, so it is recommended that you keep them informed of your events and programs. They have a process separate from the agencies for making funding decisions, and we want you to know and understand how both processes relate. Council discretionary awards are for 1 year only. Organizations seeking or receiving City Council discretionary support in FY23 must submit a CDF application by the May 16th deadline. In addition, organizations must have submitted a discretionary funding application on the City Council website this past February. The projects for which such discretionary support is sought must be the same as those in the CDF application. Contact the council member in the district where you are providing services to learn about the additional requirements that apply to this funding, or if you missed the FY23 discretionary funding application deadline. Next slide, please. DCLA administers several different and distinct funds for cultural activities. In order to be eligible for any initiative or council support that is administered by DCLA, in addition to submitting a City Council application, organizations are required to be eligible for and complete an FY23 CDF application. This CDF application is the key to eligibility for any grants our agency administers. If you do not submit this application, your organization will not be able to receive funds through DCLA in this fiscal year, though it may still be possible to receive funds through other city agencies. City Council discretionary support takes 2 different forms: member item support and through several specific initiatives. In this slide, we'll explain the member item awards, and in the following slide, we'll discuss the initiatives. Each individual member of the City Council may designate cultural organizations for support in their council district. Such support, known as member item support, is usually allocated through DCLA's budget when it's for cultural activities. Next slide, please. In addition to discretionary support for CDF activities, the Council has created a number of initiatives which provide single-year support for specific purposes. For fiscal 22, as you can see, these included CASA, the Coalition of Theaters of Color, the Cultural Immigrant Initiative, SUCASA, and the Anti-Gun Violence Initiative, Art, a Catalyst for Change. While the Council designs these initiatives and designates who will receive funds under them, our agency administers them. Unlike regular discretionary items, these initiative-funded projects cannot overlap with any CDF-funded activities, so don't include them in your CDF application. Again, in order to be eligible for any council support that is designated through DCLA, whether for CDF activities or for one or more of the council initiatives, you are required to complete both the CDF FY23 application and the council's discretionary application. Next slide, please. On to the CDF reforms. The DCLA Program Services Unit has conducted a full evaluation of the CDF award process that has led to a range of new equity-based reforms, which we are excited to share with you today. Prompted in part by the Create NYC Cultural Plan, this holistic evaluation began in early 2018 and is ongoing. It's focused on identifying and reducing bias in order to increase access to DCLA's competitive grant-making process. The results are also reflective of equity-driven changes we are seeing implemented throughout the cultural field, the national arts funding community, and our culture in general. And these changes are reflected in the CDF values of accessibility, equity, adaptability, advocacy, and accountability, which continue to guide the process. Our work aims to strengthen and enhance services for nonprofit arts and cultural organizations that have experienced historical and/or systematic financial and social inequities. Next slide, please. Our revised process will streamline internal procedures to allow for funding to be allocated and distributed more equitably and efficiently. With New York City being the largest municipal arts funder in the country, the updated CDF process will help us work toward our mandate of supporting a cultural community that reflects our city's immense diversity and truly serves every resident. You can see the following changes in this year's application. Applicants will be asked to demonstrate the organization's commitment to access, equity, and inclusion throughout the application. Evaluative criteria and application questions have been revised to encourage efforts towards equity-forward practices. As of FY23, the minimum award will increase from $5,000 to $10,000. The number of budget categories will increase from 2 to 5, allowing for greater specificity in funding amounts, and minimum award thresholds will increase across the board. All applicants will be eligible to apply for a 3-year funding commitment following the successful completion of a single award cycle, regardless of budget size. This provides longer-term stability and gives these groups the ability to plan ahead for funding. For FY23, grantee organizations will be assigned to cohorts as we establish multi-year cycles. Applicants who receive an FY23 CDF grant will learn the timing for their next competitive application, 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, as part of the grant notification this fall. For FY23, panelist recruitment will expand to include most staff categories, board members, and cultural workers in a variety of roles. For FY23, stipends for panelist participation will increase. For FY23, panels will be held virtually to provide additional access for participants and reduce the time commitment required. DCLA will also formalize the panelist evaluation rubric and share this information with applicants, providing insight into how application scores are determined. Awards will be determined after DCLA's budget is confirmed post-adoption on or around July 1st to allow for more efficient and equitable funding allocation. Applicant scores will be the primary determinant of any funding allocated above the minimum award in each budget category. To learn more about the history and goals of the FY23 CDF reforms, please visit the DCLA website. We look forward to hearing your feedback of this work. Are there any questions to what we've covered so far? I see there are a few. Can the CDF application include more than the projects applied for to City Council for discretionary funding? Your application should include the project where you are also applying for member item support, and that can be an umbrella project with different components. And more information about all of that can be found in our guidelines and in the instructions and in our office hours. We'll take a few more questions. What is an application cycle? The application cycle is the complete process from this moment when we launch the application to the webinars that we hold, to the recruitment of panelists, and being able to review applications for completeness, share them with our panelists, and go through the process of reviewing applications, scoring them, and making funding determinations through and including award allocations and notification. It's an ongoing process that really doesn't have a downtime, and it takes about a full year to go through it. We'll take a couple more questions. When we apply, do we need to indicate that we'd like to apply for a multi-year award, or is that determined exclusively by the panel? We're doing something different this year because we want to be able to switch everyone over to a multi-year cycle. So for the first time, we're inviting everyone to come back to panel in a single year. We're anticipating somewhere between 1,200 and maybe 1,400 applications. And so by doing this, we'll be able to move everyone into a 1, 2, or a 3-year cycle. And we'll be determining that when we see how many applications we get and how many we'll be able to divide into these 3 cohorts. There will be requirements for providing reports, no matter if you have a 1, 2, or 3-year grant cycle. So you'll be hearing from us, and we'll be hearing from you a lot, whether it's a 1-year, 2-year, or a 3-year award. After that, everyone will be on a 3-year cycle. So we'll have time for other questions at the end of the webinar, and we also have many other ways that you can ask questions of us. So I'd like to thank you for your attention to this background and this framing, and I'm now going to hand it over to Stacy.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Stacy McMath, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the director in the programs unit in the Department of Cultural Affairs. Later on, when I come on video, you will see that I am a white woman with brown hair and sort of bluish brown glasses. I'm sitting in a white room, and I'm wearing a green necklace. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about eligibility. So the basic requirements for eligibility are listed on your screen, but I'll highlight that applicants must be either a not-for-profit arts and cultural organization or a not-for-profit organization where arts and culture are a component of your broader mission. Those latter organizations, such as social service, religious, and educational institutions, must demonstrate at least a 2-year record of arts and cultural programs in New York City. So applicants must also be administratively based in one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, as demonstrated by your organization's address in the IRS 990 and 501c3 letter, as well as other publicly available information. Your organization must have a unique federal employee identification number and be certified tax exempt under the Internal Revenue Service Code, Section 501c3. We can accept applications from incorporated nonprofits who are using a tax-exempt fiscal sponsor that's incorporated in New York State and pre-approved by DCLA. So if you're not sure whether your conduit is eligible, please email the help desk. Applicant organizations must be incorporated in New York State as of the organization's fiscal year that ends in 2020 and compliant with annual state and federal filing requirements for nonprofit organizations. And this includes New York State Charities Bureau filings. So just a note on incorporation date. Organizations whose incorporation dates are in their fiscal year 21 or 22 will not be eligible for the CDF in this cycle. We need you to wait until you have a 2-year history to apply for the CDF. However, if you incorporated in 21 or 22, please look into the DCLA regrant program that's administered by the local arts council in your borough. Next slide, please. So applicants cannot be individual artists. There are DCLA regrant funds, as I mentioned before, administered by the local arts councils that are dedicated to individuals. Applicants also cannot be a member of the cultural institutions group or programs of city, state, or federal agencies. We cannot fund libraries or degree granting institutions, and that includes schools, colleges, and universities. If you're an organization affiliated with an institution like that, please contact DCLA prior to applying to determine your eligibility. Organizations without a history of providing services in arts and culture are not eligible to apply, nor are organizations that are delinquent in their previous reporting to DCLA. If you have questions about your organization's eligibility, please make sure you contact either your program officer or the help desk well in advance of the May 16th deadline. You'll find that help desk email address on the DCLA website, as well as in the application guidelines. Next slide, please. So we do consider applications from social or multi-service organizations, religious institutions, or organizations that provide general or non-arts education. Those organizations whose primary mission is other than arts and culture. So in this case, your organization has some additional requirements. You'll need to demonstrate a 2-year track record of cultural programming, provide written documentation of any filing exemptions that apply to your organization. In the application, your organization will enter both the budget for your cultural programs, and also you'll submit your organizational budget separately. Your application will be reviewed based on the portion of your FY20 operating income that relates to your cultural activities. So that portion of your budget, that's cultural. And for this reason, it's imperative that you have separate financial and programmatic information available for that cultural component of your organization. And that's for all years since fiscal 2020. If you're not sure if your organization has this, please take some time to talk with your bookkeeper and make sure that you can submit that required information prior to the May 16th deadline. There will be an office hours session for organizations in this category. So if you're a returning multi-service organization or a new applicant that falls into this category, please do join those office hours. And just to highlight that if you're an organization whose mission is to provide arts education, this does not apply to you. We consider those to be cultural organizations. Next slide, please. There are some policies here I'd like to highlight that relate to CDF funding. So the first is that organizations may request support for a maximum of one project, describing the programs the organization does within New York City. No more than 75% of the total project costs may come from DCLA. And if funded, organizations are expected to complete all of the programming as proposed, regardless of the amount awarded. Please remember that while applicants request funds for these programs and are evaluated on their public services, the funds received from the Cultural Development Fund can be used to cover any operating costs, except for capital expenditures, government advocacy efforts, or fundraising. Next slide, please. Okay, so public access during fiscal 2023, during our grant period, is the key component of activities funded by the CDF. The guidelines contain a longer list of examples, but here are a few of the things that the CDF can fund. So creation of new work and or the restoration of existing work for presentation to the public, arts and education programs, community-based activities, and services that assist New York City's artists and arts organizations. The CDF can fund training programs, presentation of works in progress, and virtual programs with a clear artistic service provided to New York City audiences. So DCLA can fund any of these activities, but remember, only if the public access falls between July 1st, 2022 and June 30th, 2023, within the 5 boroughs of New York City. The funding received via the CDF must be for activities that are cultural in nature. We include the humanities and sciences in our definition of culture, but not physical fitness, social services, or general education, things like homework help. Please submit a question via the Q&A function or email the help desk if you have questions about the eligibility of your project. Next slide, please. Okay, so we said the things we can fund, and now here's some things we can't. As we've said, please don't ask DCLA to support activities outside of the grant period or the 5 boroughs. We do expect you to fundraise, but cannot fund you to do so. And capital projects, including equipment purchases and construction, fall under a different unit at DCLA. So the agency does support those, but not through the CDF. Please don't include lobbying or other governmental advocacy in your application. We know that's helpful for organizations, especially to receive funding from elected officials, but you can't use our funds toward those efforts. And if you are a library or degree granting institution or closely affiliated with or housed at one, please be in touch to inquire about eligibility. DCLA cannot fund proposals for general operating support or internal capacity building for your organization. The projects you propose must provide services to your public. And lastly, your CDF proposed projects cannot include activities funded by any of the other initiatives administered through this agency. And that includes initiatives designated by the City Council, such as CASA or the Cultural Immigrant Initiative. Next slide, please. Okay, so as Helene mentioned earlier, in FY23, the evaluation criteria has been revised and refined. The criteria are here on the screen, and they include organizational accountability that will determine 40% of an applicant's score. And that will be looking for a demonstration of accountability, sustainability, and the capacity to provide cultural programs that are realistic and relevant to an organization's mission, focus, and audiences. Next up is public service and impact for 45% of the score. So looking for projects that provide arts and cultural programming in the 5 boroughs of New York City during the grant period, with a consideration toward accessibility, affordability, and equity. The last is quality, and that's 15% of the score. Looking for proposals that demonstrate evidence of quality in the execution of the arts and cultural programs. And it's important to know that consideration here will be informed by kind of a relative level of standard that's appropriate to the participants in your discipline or genre, not in comparison to any single standard of excellence. You can see the guidelines for a full description of the evaluation criteria. I'm going to pause here for Q&A and look to see if there are some questions to be answered live. So I see that there's a question about when will the office hours for the social/multi-service organization be held? I don't have that schedule in front of me, but it will be posted on the DCLA website as soon as tomorrow. And that schedule will also be included in the weekly email that will go out to applicant organizations who have completed a registration. Okay, so the second question is a season with multiple components considered a project? Absolutely, this is a great example. So a theater company that's doing 3 plays over the course of a season, that would be a great project. Or a visual arts organization that's doing 5 exhibitions over the course of a year. You could put those together to form a single project. Okay, someone asks, just to clarify, the CDF funding application request is only for 1 year, and that the multi-year application for support will begin in fiscal 24. Great question, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to clarify. So your application will be just for activities in fiscal year 23. Organizations who are offered a multi-year award will be expected to fill out a renewal application each year. And each year that renewal application will tell the agency what you plan to do with those funds. So the scope of service in a grant agreement is always only for a single year, even though we may have made a multi-year commitment to your organization by putting you on that multi-year timeline. It looks like my colleagues are diligently answering most of your questions. Here's one more. So someone would like to know whether, let's see, oh dear, whether or not we should include city council funded projects. I'm so sorry, you all, the question keeps jumping away from me. Whether or not you should include city council funded projects in the CDF proposal. At one point it was stated that CDF must include whatever project we requested city council support for, but then it was stated that DCLA can't fund activities already being funded by another city agency. Okay, so just to be clear about funds administered by DCLA, if you submit a CDF application with a project, any member item funding that is administered will be attached to that grant agreement to fund that project. That would be separate from the city council initiatives that are funded through our agency. So that's CASA, the Cultural Immigrant Initiative, the Coalition of Theaters of Color, the Anti-Gun Violence Initiative, and SUCASA. If you have further questions about this, I'd recommend coming to an office hours to speak with a program officer or submitting the details of your question to the CDF help desk, and we can further clarify. So I'm going to move on to our next slide, which is about part 1 of the CDF application. So this application consists of 2 parts. Part 1 is a form that you'll complete and submit on the DCLA portal. And part 2 consists of additional narrative questions and required supplemental materials. And that's submitted via an online form. Links to both parts of the application are found in the instructions, the guidelines, and on our website. So we'll talk about part 1 of the application first. Next slide, please. This slide shows the login page for the CDF application portal that's found on the Grants for Organizations section of the DCLA website, and that's nyc.gov/culture if you haven't visited yet. For organizations who have never applied to the Department of Cultural Affairs, users can register for a new account by clicking the yellow Register New Account button. We're going to paste the link to the registration help guide in the chat. That's also on the website under the About CDF/registration link. But that help guide can really assist organizations who are either registering for the first time or making changes to their registration. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you'll see a screenshot of the NYC ID Login page, and you'll be taken there after registering your account with DCLA. Here, you need to be sure to enter the same email address and password that you entered when you created your account with our agency. So this is part of our online security policy, which is aligned with NYC ID and the New York City Centralized Public Identity Management System. So all new and returning users will use NYC ID to log in to the DCLA CDF account. And again, there's more information in the registration help guide, which you can download from our website, and that link is in the chat. Next slide, please. So after you've logged in, you'll be taken to the homepage for your organization. This slide shows a screenshot of that page of the form, and that shows your organization's name, a button to link to your user-managed account profile, and all current and past applications and final reports, whether they're in a draft status or a final status. So the first step for every registered applicant is to review the information in your organization's account profile for accuracy and completeness. You can view that profile by clicking the yellow button on the right side of the page. It's really critical that all organizations keep this profile information current. The agency will use this profile throughout the year to contact your organization. This includes notification of the application outcome, as well as critical information about other funding opportunities and announcements that our commissioner might wish to share with the field. Next slide, please. So we're going to share highlights to keep in mind as you complete the online application. All of this information is also included in the instructions and in the form itself. Okay, so a couple of important tips. One, don't open the application in 2 windows at once, not in a single browser, not in different browsers, and not on different computers. Only one browser window at a time can be opened with your application. You want to turn off any ad blockers that you have to ensure that all of the fields are visible. Don't copy and paste directly from your website into the form, please. What happens is that embedded characters from your website can cause technical malfunctions in the form. So we suggest using maybe a text editing application first and then copying that text into the form directly. Remember to save your work often as you go. The system will log you out after 10 minutes if you haven't saved a page or navigated to a different section of the form. Also note that there are optional questions throughout this application, and organizations with limited capacity are encouraged not to complete those optional questions. Those questions will not be reviewed by panelists and have no bearing on funding outcome. This should go without saying, but please don't hit that yellow submit application button until you're sure it's ready for submission, because you cannot edit it after you've hit submit. After you do that, hit that submit button, the active users on your account profile will get an automated email confirmation that you've completed part 1 of the application. Save that email for your records, and if you don't receive it, you should check your junk mail folder. That confirmation email will include your FY23 application number. That number is assigned automatically when the online application is submitted, and we can't provide an application number before the online form is received. Next slide, please. Apologies for the background noise. So here is an organization overview page. A few tips before you begin your application. A competitive proposal will demonstrate your organization's commitment to access, equity, and inclusion throughout the application. You want to be sure to include your organization's actual mission statement and ensure that your proposed project clearly fulfills that mission. Include as many details as you can about the audience that's currently served by your organization, as well as the audience that you intend to serve with your proposed project. Describe how you're going to reach that audience before, during, and even after your program. Include previous year's activities that relate to the projects you're proposing. This will give the panel a sense of your experience presenting these kinds of cultural programs. Applications that have filled out the CDF application in past years will notice that the organizational stewardship question that used to appear in the staff information section has been replaced with a question regarding internships and fellowships. That organizational stewardship question now appears in part 2 of the application, where we have provided a lot of additional space for your answer. Next slide, please. So as you are working on your project narrative, remember that the focus of CDF support is artistic and cultural services to the public. Organizations may request support for one project, and that project narrative should contain a level of detail that's responsive to all of the criteria for funding: organizational accountability, public service, and quality. In determining the proposed programming and crafting your descriptions in this section, be mindful of the available character limits and how best to present a clear, comprehensive description of the elements in the space provided. Make sure that your narrative connects the project to your organization's mission, and make sure that you define the public and describe the access that your project provides. It's up to you to clearly define who it is that you're serving. Remember that the CDF funds projects of both breadth and depth. So those that reach a broad range of people, as well as those that provide a depth of service for a small number of people. Your public could be anything from 5 artists participating in a series of workshops to 200 people at an outdoor presentation to 1,000 New York City school children attending a virtual concert. We understand that some specifics might not be confirmed when the application is submitted. When this is the case, be sure to include as much detail as you can about how you'll go about making the decisions that will make this project a reality, including when key decisions will be made and who the key decision makers are. Remember that organizations receiving CDF funding are expected to complete the programming as proposed, regardless of the amount that's awarded. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is a visual example to help you with your presentation of your project. So there are two identical texts on this slide. The text on the left includes paragraph breaks and the occasional use of capital letters. The paragraph on the right is very dense. It has ampersands and abbreviations, but it actually has the exact same information. The section on the left really allows the reader, the panelist in this case, to find key information on that page. The text on the right makes it too difficult to read, and you don't want to make it harder for the panelists to read and process your narrative. So just make sure that your text is easily legible. Use appropriate spacing and paragraph breaks, which only count as a single character. And note that some formatting tools, such as bold, italics, and underline, are not available in this application. If you copy and paste, the text might not appear as you entered it in a word processing program. So you can use the yellow print preview button at the bottom of the project summary page to see what the text will look like to the panel. Please do not embed links in your narrative. The panel will be instructed not to investigate outside links while reviewing your application. Next slide, please. So your budget is a significant component of your application. And here is some guidance as you fill out that budget page. So the application requires budgets for your overall organization and also for the specific project you're proposing. That organizational budget should be your fiscal year. The project budget should reflect the city's fiscal year. That's the grant period, July 1st to June 30th. We do suggest working on the budget offline first. You can use an Excel document if that's easier. The application form will time out after 10 minutes of not saving your work, and you do not want to get closed out in the middle of entering your budget information. So the CDF request amount will be drawn from the figure you enter in your project budget under DCLA project request. Make sure you double check that request amount. DCLA can't fund more than 75% of the total cost of a project. And to be competitive for funding, your request amount should be equal to or exceed the minimum award amount in each budget category. We recommend that applicants request between at least 1 and 2 times the minimum award amount in the applicant organization's FY20 budget category. And there's a lot of detail about this in the guidelines. Your city council initiative expected income, so again, that's programs like CASA, SUCASA, CTC, those should not be listed in your project budget because those programs won't overlap with your CDF programs. However, you should include the expectation for those awards in your full organizational budget, and those will go into the DCLA other field. You can click the yellow budget overview button at any time to review your project and organizational budgets next to each other. And we recommend doing that because that's how the panel will see them. I'm going to see if there are questions to be answered. So an attendee asks if there's a limit to how many programs you can apply with. So you will have the opportunity to submit one project narrative. If that project narrative contains 100 presentations for New York City school children, as long as you have described the program with a high level of detail, that's okay. But that's the limitation in terms of how you can strategize your request. You have that single project narrative. Another question, can we still apply for multiple activities in one application? So you want to give some thought to how you organize your proposal. An example might be, again, a visual arts organization with a season of exhibitions. You could potentially include a public program that is in line with those exhibitions, or an education program that uses those exhibitions as the basis. But you want to make sure that everything going into that single narrative makes sense. Okay, one last question to answer live. How do we anticipate member item funding? Great question. So your organization may have received member item funding in the past, and if you are expecting to receive it this year, you can use that as a guide. You could talk with your council member about what member items that they give out usually look like, and that could help you to determine what the member item funding is that you put into this proposal. Okay, thank you so much for your patience as we navigated a little bit of technical difficulty. I'm going to hand the presentation over to my colleague, Ladan Hamidi-Tusi, who will cover part 2 of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. I'm going to turn my video on real quick before I jump back off screen for the rest of the presentation. My name is Ladan Hamidi-Tusi. My pronouns are she and her. I'm the co-director of the Program Services Unit here at DCLA. For accessibility, I am wearing a black button-down collared shirt. My hair is brown. It is in a top knot, which you probably can't see because of the virtual background that I'm in front of, which is a white background with the DCLA logo repeated on it. And my glasses are sort of like turquoisey green. So thank you all for coming, and we'll continue with the presentation discussing the CDF application part 2. Part 2 of the application includes further application questions and the supplemental documentation upload via an online form. The link to part 2 can be found on the applying page of our website. Next slide, please. So please note that part 2 of the application cannot be saved while in progress. So we recommend using a separate document to complete these questions offline and then fill out the form when you're ready to submit. You want to make sure that the organization name and the EIN, that's also the tax ID or the employee identification number that you're entering on part 2, match the same information on part 1 of the application, because we want to make sure we have a matching set of both parts of the application. And those are the identifying characteristics, your name and EIN. All required narrative questions are integral to the revised application process and will assist panelists in evaluating your organization's organizational accountability, public service, and impact where applicable. For more information, please refer to the application instructions. So the other thing to note on this form is that some parts of the section about supplemental documentation where you're uploading materials are dynamic. And that means that depending on the answer to one question, additional queries will appear in the form. So double check your answers to ensure that all of the required materials have been uploaded. Following recommendations made in the Create NYC Cultural Plan released in July 2017, the Language Access Fund, LAF, and Disability Forward Fund, DFF, were launched to support both new and ongoing programmatic efforts to engage New Yorkers in these communities. There will be no additional application for either LAF or DFF in FY23. In prior years, funds added adoption have been awarded to eligible CDF funded projects that met these criteria. Consideration for language access or disability forward funds will be confirmed on this form, and these answers will not be shared with the panelists. Next slide, please. Right, so on the slide, it's called supplemental documentation. That's what we're talking about right now. Remember, a complete and eligible application must include the submission of digital supplemental documentation. There will be no exceptions to the May 16th deadline, and organizations that fail to submit both parts of the CDF application and required uploads by the deadline will be ineligible for funding from this agency in FY23. Consult the application instructions to determine your required supplemental documentation. One of those things is an IRS 990 form, and that is going to be for the fiscal year for your organization that ended in 2020. Your organizational budget will determine which financial statement for FY20, if any, is required. And if you're one of those organizations with a primary mission other than arts and culture, the social service, religious, or educational institutions, multi-service organizations, you're going to complete an additional organizational budget template. The template's available on our website. Next slide, please. Continuing on with supplemental documentation, that also includes background materials. So background materials should be no more than 10 pages and include the dates of the referenced activities. Please submit one PDF up to 10 pages. We are not going to accept hard copy or email documents. You want to submit all of these materials via the online form only. Please only submit your supplemental documentation once and double check all the correct materials are saved and uploaded as PDFs before pressing the submit button. The first submission of this Part 2 form will be considered the official submission. And there's a lot more instructions and details about this on the form itself, as well as in the application instructions, including examples of the type of background materials and that sort of thing. So check the instructions for that. And when you submit, you will be provided with a confirmation number. Next slide, please. So on this slide, you're seeing what's being called the panelist view. So this is a sort of sample view of what the application report will look like when the panelists review it. They will see the information that your organization entered in both Part 1 and Part 2 of the application in a different order than when you submit it. So in the order of the form is not necessarily the order in which they read it. You can download a panelist view sample application from the DCLA website. It's not there yet. It should be uploaded or posted soon. And it's on the screen, you're seeing a little bit of a sample of it. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we're talking about fund allocation. There is a table. This is the same table that you see in the guidelines, and it's got the different budget categories. You're seeing the minimum awards in each budget category. The maximums will be established once DCLA's FY23 budget has been adopted. Once applications go through the competitive panel review, DCLA will have a final average score for each proposal. After DCLA's FY23 budget is adopted, available funding will be used to determine a percentage of all applicants funded. And we do intend to continue to fund a high percentage of applicants as we have in the past. Funded grantees will be awarded the minimum allocation in their award category, plus additional funding determined by their score and budget category. Please note that organizations with budgets under $25,000 will only be eligible for a $10,000 award. So that is the minimum and the maximum if your budget's under $25,000. And so don't ask for less than 10 at the very least. Additional funds may be added according to agency priorities post-adoption, as we mentioned, including for targeted funding resources, funding sources, such as the Language Access Fund and Disability Forward Fund. And I'm getting a update that yes, the panelist view is available on the website if you want to take a look at it at your leisure. Next slide, please. So, congratulations. You sat through this seminar, you came to the office hours, you asked all the questions, you did a fantastic job in your application, and your organization is getting a grant if your organization is funded. Notification will take place after the grant period has begun. You may not know if you have been awarded funds until the fall, even for programs that take place in the summer. So do please plan accordingly. This is just the way the study budget timing works. It's unfortunately, we're never going to be able to notify everybody exactly when the budget year starts, but be prepared for that if you have proposed activities that take place in the early part of the fiscal year, so like July, August, September. We expect each grantee to move forward with the activities proposed, regardless of the size of the DCLA award or the timing of our payments. Funds may not move as swiftly as you or we would like, but we do our best to do that. We really do care a lot about getting that funding out the door, and we really appreciate your understanding. So generally, we do an initial payment of 80%. That's paid as early in the fiscal year as possible upon completion of all of the required paperwork. And then the remaining 20% of the grant balance is paid out only upon completion of the services and approval of the final report. So there is a portion that will always be on a reimbursement basis because it comes after you've reported on the completed activities. In some years, there have been budget adjustments mid-year that have increased or decreased awards slightly. Those adjustments are made when we issue final payments typically. Next slide, please. Again, if your organization is funded, funded applicants are expected to have adequate insurance to cover their activities. We expect you to be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And funded organizations must also follow DCLA's policy for acknowledging the receipt of these funds by including the updated DCLA logo and appropriate credit language in digital and printed materials. Next slide, please. All right, we did it. This is, we've come to the sort of conclusion of the presentation portion of the webinar. I do want to give you one last reminder that everything we just covered needs to be submitted by Monday, May 16th to meet the application deadline and be eligible for funding. Please remember that this is not the first day that you can submit, but it's the last day that you can submit. Please don't wait until the last minute. Drink in this deadline and let it burn into your brain. Don't forget it and don't wait till the last minute. As I've mentioned a couple of times before in this session, we're adding office hours this year. That's new with the DCLA program officers. Everybody who has outstanding questions after this webinar or reviewing all of the materials, you can submit them for response in a small group virtual setting. You can check our website for more information and look for weekly emails for updates to the FAQs and also more reminders during the open application period. I believe that the first office hours are going to be starting next week and they're going to go until I think May 10th. The schedule was in the email that we sent out last week, and I think we're going to start taking reservations for that by the end of this week. So just keep an eye out for that. And hopefully there'll be a time and a day and a session that you can come if you still have questions to talk to your program officer. So I'm going to turn my video back on and take in a couple of questions that came into the Q&A. And so any more outstanding general questions at this time, please do submit them. So let's take a look and see what we've got. Okay, the first question to be answered live. Is LAF funding considered part of the CDF request, or is it an additional request on top of that? I.e., if we apply for funding in our budget category, would the LAF funding be a part of that or in addition to it? So the short answer to that question is yes, it should be included in the project that you're requesting, because if it is added to your award, it will become part of the whole sort of total grant, and that will be part of and that will go to the overall scope of services. Hopefully in future, we can return to best practice, which we have done in the past, which is a separate application for that kind of funding. But this year, if that funding is awarded, it'll come in to be sort of combined with your overall CDF award. Hope that answers your question. Okay, next one to answer. What if you applied for a city council initiative for the first time? So we aren't sure we can anticipate receiving it. Would we still include it? So I'll just clarify that you are definitely, oh, I thought I did. I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. I said I was going to turn my video on and I didn't actually do it. Thanks, friends. Sorry about that. Okay, so back to the question. So if you're talking about the city council initiatives, that's the CASA, SUCASA, separate things that are not overlapping with your CDF request. If you are not sure you're going to get it, but you think you have a chance, you can project it in your budget and put in the notes that you're anticipating this. Now, that kind of funding, you would only want to put in the organizational budget, because that should only be a factor there. It should not overlap or be included in your project budget, because that can't be part of what you're using to fund them. So anything that you're anticipating city council funding or any other type of funding that you are projecting, but you're not sure you're going to get it, be sure to notate that in the budget notes so that the panel understands this isn't just, I think I might get it, but I have a plan, this is what we're doing, that you're like being responsible about your budget projections. So the next question to answer is, are video links possible for background or supplemental materials? So I would say I would probably refrain from including video links in favor of background material that is something that can be accessible to all and is viewable in a sort of what the panels might have a limited amount of time. So I would recommend more photos, flyers, that kind of thing, as opposed to video links, which they may or may not have access to in the supplemental materials or during the panel. So work samples like that are typically not been a huge part of our panel process. There's other materials that we would recommend, and there's a list of kinds of examples in the instructions. Next question, is the operating income requirement referring to the organization's budget or the project budget for the proposed activities? So the operating income requirement, I'm not sure about the requirement, but the operating income field on the application and all of the things that are sort of derived from what is your operating income, that's your organization's budget. There's a whole section of the application where you're giving us your operating income and expenses based on your organization's budget. And then you're going to tell us what you're proposing for the year and what you want us to fund. And then you're going to give us a project budget for that. So those, when it's talking about operating income, that's the organization's budget. Yes. So next question. We changed our fiscal year in 2020 to match the DCLA fiscal year, but that resulted in our FY20 reflecting only 6 months of activities. As we said, reset our FY. This puts us in a lower category for funding allocations than our typical 12-month results. How do we best explain the situation in the application? This is a very common thing that happens with people changing their fiscal year. It is okay, it happens. You have to one time pick either you're going to have a short year or an extra long year. So the best thing to do is to use the budget notes category, the fields in your application to explain anything that might be a question mark to the panelists, and that might include this. So you can refer to the fact that this is what you did, how it worked, everything that it implies, and that can be something that goes in. I think there's a question about budget responsibility and that kind of thing that is in there's a couple of places in the application budget notes that I would recommend sort of addressing that there. And in terms of the application itself, you are going to be giving us the aggregate figure for FY20 at the beginning of the proposal, but then the broken out budgets you're showing us will be for 21, 22 and projected for 23. So the idea will be that the anomalous year of 20 you can explain, and then the panel will still be seeing full years of your most recently completed year, the current year, and the projected year. Okay. So if you applied for a city council initiative for the first time, I already answered that question. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I apologize if I misunderstood this question. Paul, your question about the answer on your previous question regarding operating income, I must have missed the context for that. So I'm going to defer to my colleagues there. And also just a huge thank you to everyone that you haven't seen on video, all of the programs team who are knocking it out of the park, answering all of these amazing questions. And Helene said, don't be shy, and you were not. So thank you for all of these great questions. I'll take one more. Okay, so this last one, how do we know who our program officer is? If you have a program officer, but you don't know who that person is, that's okay. Email the help desk and we'll point you in the right direction. Right. Attending the FY23 CDF webinar, keep an eye out again for all of the information coming about office hours, email your program officer or the help desk if you still have questions, and tell others about the upcoming seminars, or excuse me, webinars. We're having a few more in the next few weeks. So there'll be lots of opportunities for people to come in and view this presentation and ask their questions. We'll also be posting the recording of this session that we just included today. And I think we'll probably send out an email when that is posted. So if you're ever at a loss and you want to go back to it, this one's going to get recorded. It has been recorded and will be posted soon. Okay, thank you all. I'm going to end now and appreciate everyone's patience and attendance.